I could also see that, like, if you can find someone that you really, really, really trust, it's kind of like this compartmentalization thing, right? Where you can become like way more efficient in your life because someone else manages like these needs for you or whatever. But the thing is that if that relationship falls apart, then you're going to be like deficient as an individual.
So you want to find something that replaces that, right? Which is why some people, they basically line up people to be in relationship with right?
Yeah.
Have you ever like known a person who does that, where they just jump from another to another? Like it seems
Yeah,
like they
so like
always have a guy lined up.
after they end a relationship, it's like I've been using this, like, my boyfriend, girlfriend,
Doing
whatever it
stuff.
is, as a way for me to compensate for this side of myself. And since I'm out of a relationship, I have to find one again immediately because they feel so uncomfortable, like developing that maturity or whatever, like well-roundedness.
Mm.
But
Because
also, like, I think to an extent, like, if I'm looking for like a partner, right, I'm looking for someone that can help me improve or like fill some of my gaps. So in a way, like, if I did find someone like that and we stayed together for a long time, you would expect us to start to specialize a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's why it's hard, like, when people in really, really long relationships, I think, and then they, divorce or break up or whatever, that it is really hard for them for a while because they've lost like a part of their own cognition in a way because they've kind of compartmentalized it a little bit after enough time, just automatically, not consciously necessarily.
Yeah. I think that's good.
do you think that's because I guess there's different angles you could take about the relationship thing, that it's about filling the gaps, right? But
Yeah.
you think it could be good to play on each other's strengths as well? Like, for example, I would say like INTP and ENTP relationship would be playing on each other's strengths, right? Because that's like there's no FE in that relationship. Of course, a little bit maybe from the ENTP, right? But you know,
Yeah. I mean, playing to the strengths is also, that's kind of too, like, each of you then would be specialized into your strengths, right? And so there would be aspects of, for example, like in the ENTJ example, like I might end up becoming like less engaged with like people that I didn't want to normally have to engage with if I knew that my partner could engage them for me. You know what I mean? So like I might not develop, those skills as much. But on the other hand, they might force you to come out and be more social more often, which might help you develop those skills. So I'm not really sure like how
exactly.
I'm not sure exactly how the cookie would crumble, but either one of those things could occur, I guess.
But then you could have like a relationship like within like from an INTP perspective and ESFJ, and that would be where you play on each other's weaknesses, right? Where basically you're strong in the area they are weak in, basically.
Yeah.
And the other way around.
Like the quadra stuff, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So they have strong FE and you have strong TI, and they have weak TI. So it should balance each other out in a way.
But then, as a concrete unit, though, it might be kind of bleh and average. It might.
Yeah, that's why I think that like you should like have like the different types as like your friends. Like because like there will be people who have the opposite traits of you, and that will like help you build on your weaknesses. But at the same time, like you'll have people that have different, like the different order of things. But like I don't know, like if they have the complete opposite of what you have, then that could be good. But if it's just what you have and in a different order, like in a hierarchical sense, then I think that can help you build on your weaknesses too. But like that could probably be like really difficult to.
I think a relationship where you are with a polar user, like for example, if INTPs with an ESFP or an ESTP, it would be too much in the long run.
Yeah.
I've been thinking like ENTJ would be really interesting because of how developed my NI has started to get. I feel like I could really connect with them on that level and still like complement each other, right? So it's like you use NI to like, that's the thing that's like common between the two of you, basically. And then they can they have the extroverted thinking, which is like crucial for like a successful INTP relationship, I think.
But I think that relationship is like, I think of it like a business relationship almost, because there's no deep stuff. Because like in ENTJ, they are so like, there's no time for fun. They are like very.
Yeah, that's the thing. It would have to be like a power couple thing.
Yeah, almost like almost.
That's the thing. Like another thing that I kind of look for in a partner is someone that can pick up on my like emotional instability, like when I'm, because I'm pretty good at hiding it, but I need someone that's like able to like identify that and can actually comfort me, and I trust them to do that. And I don't know if the ENTJ would really like be doing a lot of that.
An ENTP like is good at that, like from an INTP perspective, to notice what you are doing wrong, basically, because especially if they know you well, like because an ENTP are like they are people know us, if that is even an expression, but I think you can trust the judgment a lot more.
Yeah. I don't know. I've kind of been off the dating scene for a while. I've pretty much only been doing hookup stuff for a long time because I don't know. I had a really
hookup stuff. Do you mean where you just go on a date and then
like more just like where it's explicit that it's kind of just going to be like sex for the most part? I don't know. I kind of was in like a weird relationship. I really liked this one person, and then I even got them like flowers and shit, and so I really like them if I'm out fucking buying flowers. And they ended up like rejecting me and then getting with somebody else, right? But then I ended up living with that other person. But then they ended up cheating on the person I was interested in, and we ended up in like kind of like a pseudo relationship. But I found out that the only reason really why, like, this person turned out to be a sociopath, and they were, I think,
the one you were interested in, or
the person, yeah, the other one that I ended up becoming interested in, and weird emotional shit kicked in too, where it was
sociopath.
Like, yeah, they were INFP or INFJ, sorry, but they were also like sociopathic.
An INFJ with sociopathic tendencies sounds fucking insane.
Terrifying. Yeah. And I ended up like living with them, and it turns out that they were just using me for sex because, like their boyfriend was gone for like the summer, right? And then this whole like relationship that we had was just them meeting their physical needs, and I was like completely blind to it, right? I was just like the wool was pulled over my eyes. It was like the NI magic like obscured my vision, It was like, because that's the level we connected on, right? It was like the NI. And
didn't you piss you off, like when you found out you were?
When I found out about it, I got so angry. Like, I've never really wanted to get in a fight and like kill somebody, but I felt that's how I felt, and I was stuck living with them though, and I had enough rationality that I knew I couldn't do that. That was stupid. So it was just like a brutal time, and like eventually I just had to really kick myself into action to do a bunch of stuff to get me out of like a really bad place in my life, like because I was also like I was not in school then too, and I didn't really have a job, so I was like we were like selling bud out of the house, and like the whole thing was just like this really like shitty scenario, like emotionally toxic. Like there's this like sociopath in the house, and
how did you find out that
Well, it was like after the summer they got back together and they like weren't even affected. Like it wasn't even like a thing to them. They're like, yeah, I'm getting back with them. And then it was just like, fuck you. And then it became clear, like later we had like we tripped mushrooms later, and then they were really honest. And when they were really honest, I was able to figure out that they were a sociopath, right?
Okay.
So that was the thing. That it was later when we were on shrooms that I realized what was going on.
Sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fucked up time in my life, and since then I've just like been avoiding relationships because I still feel so fucked up and vulnerable from that, honestly. But
I guess like
I need to get past it, obviously.
Because it takes a long time to get over that kind of thing. Also, especially for INTPs, it's just a thing where like of all the INTP profiles I've read, it's just like if you manipulate an INTP and they found out they were manipulated, it's
game over.
Yeah, it's like kind of the worst thing you can do. I don't know what it is.
Well,
like, why do you think it is that we hate so much? Like,
it's our sense of trust. Like, I think it's because we just feel vulnerable when we put, an iota of trust in someone and then they abuse it, and it's even worse when you put a lot of trust in someone to the point that you're like, intimate and like you have emotional vulnerabilities and you're telling them about it and stuff. And then if they actively use those against you, right, that's just like untenable.
I get pissed off.
Yeah.
Not pissed off, I just get disappointed in the other person. Almost.
Well, that too. Yeah.
I guess it's a mix of being like anger, disappointment, in a way.
Yeah. Especially when it's just like so nonchalant that they do it, and it's just like whatever.
Yeah, I fucking hate that shit. Like, oh.
It's like, this is life. You just manipulate people, right? And it's like, no, fuck you. But also, like, in order to deal with people like that, you have to kind of like counter manipulate and stuff. And I hate that because like after spending time with that person, it's like I've become like slightly like I'm able to think from like worst case scenario points of view. So it's like I could make a calculation like a sociopath, but I won't act on it because it makes me feel like, shit to like do something like that. But it's like I can understand their way of thinking, and the reason I can is because I'm trying to understand it so I can protect myself from their way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But in the process of thinking about it, it kind of makes you engage in that thought exercise, which kind of worries me. But I think as long as I like keep an eye on it, I'm not going to suddenly start not feeling empathy or whatever. I hope.
I think empathy for NTPs in general is very specific in some areas, because at least in maybe it's just me, but in many cases I've had this thing where I can really emphasize with a person, but it's like a really specific area of empathy in a way. And then with other people, I can't empathize at all, but I try, but I try to understand in a way, but I just can't, so I just kind of fake it,
Yeah. I don't know. I think I can empathize with most people on some level, but there's a lot of the times I've realized that what I'm empathizing with is actually like a projection of how I think I would have felt in that scenario sometimes. And if the person is like a radically different type, or something like that, that I can't really get in the headspace of, like my empathy is probably misplaced slightly, But I still feel it. It's just like probably not 100% accurate because I don't understand like exactly where they're coming from. Just
also because I really dislike like feeling sorry for yourself. I don't know why, but I really dislike people who do that a lot, because I'm like, then fucking fix it. That's what I think every time. Like, why the fuck would you cry over this thing if you can fix it, right? Like, doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like self-pity in itself doesn't make sense to me. I guess like it's kind of nice sometimes, like everybody does it, like have a bit of self-pity, but
well, I get kind of
too
angry with
much
myself.
of it is.
I get angry with myself when I catch myself, almost pitying. Like I kind of go through like cycles of where I'm like more active, and then when I'm in a more like contemplative state. And sometimes when I'm in like the more contemplative state, like I start feeling like pretty, I'm very, very self-critical, and sometimes I can see that start bleeding over to like
Self-pity.
self. But when that starts to happen, I just kind of get angry at myself, right? Like
yeah, it's like fucking pussy.
It kind of pisses me off, and so I think that when I see that in other people too, I also have that tendency. But for me, it's a bit more of me kind of like trying to keep my own head out of that space. But I don't know if that's probably not all INTPs like are like that. That's just my thing.
Also, like I think INTPs in most cases will try to come up with solutions to find the problem, but in many cases people don't want the solution, they just wanna.
Yeah, that's something I've realized too. When people come to you for like emotional support, God forbid, if you don't know them very well, you just got to listen to them and be they don't want to hear like the master plan about how to get out of their scenario. That's the last thing they want to hear,
Yeah, how do we fix this? Because that's the first my mind goes to when somebody close to me wants some help. I instantly just start thinking how I can make it better, right?
But that's also how I think about my own self. When things start going bad to me, I start thinking about like in a TI framework, like using TI and NE to try and come up with like a plan to get me out of this scenario or whatever. But
yeah, exactly.
I think sometimes that just in the same way that other people, all they want is like FE, as Susie is saying, that it's like if I was better at caring for myself and acknowledging like my emotional sensitivities and stuff, that I would probably be able to handle stuff like that better. The fact that I go in and start planning right away and trying to like get out of this, it sometimes is like potentially like ignoring the more emotional side of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's because we kind of reject the emotional thing. We want to make it like we want to get out of it as fast as possible.
Right. It's scary. It's like
it's
a stormy sea. We gotta get out.
Remember, like I don't know, this was like a couple of years ago, but I started laughing to myself because I was crying because I felt so pathetic.
Yeah, that's happened to me too, where it's like I start laughing at the absurdity of my self-pity almost, and then it becomes...
Yeah, exactly. I've done it before. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm a pussy, and I start laughing while I'm crying.
Yeah, like, oh my fucking god. Or sometimes I'll laugh at the absurdity of like how much like pain I can be in, and like how I'm so like incapable of like dealing with it, and I just laugh because it's like, fuck you, Cosmos, like this is absurd. Like why did you make me have to contemplate all this fucking shit and then give me no tools to like process it? Like
yeah, exactly. Actually, when I did it, I was like, holy fuck, I must be psychotic or something, because like, who the fuck laughs pathetic while crying? Like it was, yeah, I don't know. It was just weird. Like,
right.
Like I don't know if like I don't think many other like types do that, where they feel pathetic about feeling a feeling. Like feeling an emotion. Holy fuck, I'm pathetic. Like who the fuck does that?
Apparently INTPs do.
Yeah. True. Just a weak human being.
That's and yeah, but that tendency is kind of a feedback loop, right? Because then you start suppressing it again, and it starts building up until all the emotion comes out in this huge burst of like, what the fuck, like, and it's scary, and then you try and like suppress it again, and the cycle repeats. But,
yeah, I think my fuse is pretty long, but when the fuse is gone, I don't know, hell just breaks loose almost for a while.
Yeah. That's how it is too. Like, you know, I have really long fuses with people for the most part, but if I also have like a lot of emotional baggage that's accumulated, and then that, you know, I get to that end point, like, I can sometimes be like almost like crazy looking, you know, like,
yeah.
Just like, whoa, dude, why are you so fucking emotional? Like, what the hell? And because people are like, they never see that side of me either. So when it does happen, they're just like, you fucking nuts. Like,
I wouldn't say like my emotional side is not, you don't feel, holy shit, that's cute. Like, that's not how you think about an INTP when you go crazy, right? You don't think, holy shit, that's cute. You think, holy fuck, that guy is.
He has reached the point that they're like mad with rage and just like anger and hate and like, you know, you better fucking leave. Like,
yeah, like, because I've done that before, and I will grab anything in the room and I will fucking smash it or kick it or whatever. Like,
I remember one time in high school, I was just, you know, I had a lot of shit going on, you know, and I was in like a fight with my parents, and like I remember like getting like almost going like mad with emotion. I like picked up a fire extinguisher and I like went up to my dad, and like I had to catch myself, and I was like, did I really almost just hit my dad with a fire extinguisher? Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, but you know, that's very uncommon, you know, like.
Yeah.
Why did you want to do that though?
I don't remember what we were even fighting about. It was like, it was a bunch of other shit that had accumulated, you know?
Yeah. It usually is that for me, especially if you have like really, really passive aggressive parents.
Yeah, it was that too. And like for a long time, like, you know, the way things worked with like discipline in my house is that like my mom would get really upset, and then my dad would like, you know, like get the belt, and then like it would be like on the butt, you know, like spankings, but with the belt or whatever. And so like that over time, like, you know, that also kind of, you know, actually now that I think about it, after I picked up that fire extinguisher, that never happened again. Now that I think about it.
A little hint there, you know.
What?
A little hint.
Yeah, a little hint that I'm a man now. That you can't just fucking whip me with a belt because mom's pissed.
Yeah.
But you know, there's like other shit going on. Like, I had a rough time coming out of middle school into high school. Just like, I didn't have like good sense of. I didn't really have like good relationships with any of my friends or anything, and so I was, you know, there was a lot of shit going on. It wasn't just my parents, you know.
I remember when I was younger, like when I started high school, I had this thing where I always felt like I didn't have a best friend. I was just, you know, kind of I was buddies with everyone. I was never personal with anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
I found it strange because I always wanted to have really close relationships with like a few people, but I always found that like those people that I wanted to have close relationships with managed like a much larger group of friends. So it always felt like I was like taking too much of their time, you know, and it felt kind of one-sided sometimes.
You don't want to seem intrusive.
Yeah, and so then I would distance myself, but then feel like they didn't want me, you know, it was all internalizing it and trying to you know, freaking out about it.
I've noticed that a lot about INTPs, that we really don't want to seem intrusive, and that sometimes backfires.
Yeah, because we don't want to see intrusive, and then people were like, "Well, you never put in the effort for the friendship."
Yeah, exactly. But we are like, well,
and then the tragic irony comes crashing down on you, and you're just like, shit.
Yeah, I had this with a friend where I really wanted to like hang out with him and stuff, but I knew he was really busy, and he always told me like, "Oh, I'm so busy right now," and blah blah blah. So I was like, "Okay, I'm just, you know, just gonna leave him alone because I know he's stressed. I'm not gonna burden him with the fact that he had to, you know, reject my offer or whatever to hang out." But then he told me like at some point that he was like, what happened and stuff, because I never asked him to do anything and stuff. But I was like, you know, kind of surprised me because I always thought that I was just giving him space, but he didn't like. I guess he just misunderstood my intention.
Yeah, it's yeah. Can you spell it, Drew Phillips?
But
Good old crisis actors.
But Suzanne, what do you think about the fact that Neptune has typed himself as INFP now? Do you think it fits?
I don't really.
I don't
know.
see why not.
Yeah, why not?
Hmm.
The way I see it, if someone can retype themselves and then it works out, even if like, I think it, his justification for it seemed to be okay.
Yeah, I think I know why I did it, and it makes sense. Doesn't matter.
I was just curious. Like I didn't really have an opinion on it. It's just
But he's not the extreme typical INFP. But
Yeah.
he's not typical INTP either.
He also seems to have had a weird, thing. I mean, how old is he? Do you know?
23 something, right? 24.
Something like that, early 20s.
Yeah, because he's
Yeah,
that
really.
old, but he has this weird thing about relationships and stuff. He's celibate or whatever. I don't know if that affects. It just might explain why he doesn't seem to match up with other types because he's had different life experiences and a different relation to stuff. I don't know. I'd have to think about how that might affect things though. It's weird. When we talk about how life experiences change someone's how their personality manifests, it's hard to ever say with certainty what did what. Or,
Some people are really hard to type. You know them well. I've noticed that. I think it's almost the more I know the person, the more I find it difficult to type them almost.
I think that the hardest people to type, in my experience, have been those that have had the most strange life experiences. That have done weird things. Whether it's weird careers or different thing. It just seems that they have strange stuff going on. Which would make sense since you can't figure out what their type is. It's they must be rather unique people. I don't know. What does Neptune do? Does he
I think he's a student.
a student? Does he just
But he's a half alcoholic almost.
Does he drink a lot?
I think so. At least that's the observation I got.
He's 23. Yes.
Yeah. It goes with the whole argument, can your type change? It seems looking into the tri-type and the Enneagram stuff, it seems those ones seem they kind of change. More likely than...
I agree to tri-type. I think it changes.
Yeah.
I don't think your core type changes though. I think I will always be a 5, for example. That's for sure. But the other, I think it. I noticed that it really changes my preference for the different kinds.
Well, because when I was reading through it, I want to have it feels right to have 1 in my tri-type, but if it wasn't for certain experiences that I had when I was 14 or so, I don't think I would be a 1, right? So it feels kind of a bit I don't know.
I also think that environment, like the environment you were growing up in, and the other aspects, how your parents raised you, stuff like that, like the values they provided when you were growing up, right? Like they mean a lot within the type you have, which can make it hard to type someone, right?
Yeah.
For example, let's say you have I don't know, an ISFP, but they've been in this really strict power like family where they have like an ESTJ and ISTJ mom and dad. They always had to, you seem then the ISFP. I think it would be toned down, like you wouldn't be able to. And also, it could be the other way, they really want to break the rules, and then they are completely opposite of their parents, you know.
So like, I there's aspects like, so my mom was like really task oriented and always wanted me to like do all my schoolwork and like just do all the stuff, and I really like resented that, because that like didn't feel like how, it seemed really, really forced all the time, and it was like, give me a good reason to do this and maybe I'll consider it, not just like, don't do it for the sake of doing it because this is what's appropriate, that over time, like I found that like after I left my parents, like that there's like an inner voice inside me that is kind of like perfectionist, and like kind of like is like nags me almost, like when I'm not completing tasks, but it causes me like a lot of anxiety more than anything else, because it's like my mom's like still in my head, and that's also why like that contributes a little bit to the one part of my tri-type, I think, too.
I think that's interesting that you mentioned the thing that your mom is in your head, because my mom is the same way, but she's in my head differently, because she provided me with other values. You mentioned that you thought your mom was an ESTJ or an ISTJ, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a TJ, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, because she had her PhD, right, in speech language pathology. I mean, she definitely, could, she was a thinker. It's just that like she wasn't really intuitive at all. It was very, very literal, like she was good at memorizing shit and stuff like that,
My mom is, I'm pretty sure she's an ISFJ, and the voice she has in my head is always regarding how I should treat other people, because she was always so, like, she always corrected me a lot on that stuff, like, oh, you have to say thank you for the gift, and you have to call that and that person, or she did all that stuff. So that's kind of ingrained in me that you always do that kind of stuff, like the FE stuff.
Yeah,
it's really strong in me, I feel like.
So the thing is that the thing my mom was really big on was like any type of lying at all, right? Like those are the times when I would get like whipped or whatever by my dad, is whenever I like lied about something. Or for example, if I like tried to bring my Game Boy to school, and I like tried to hide it or something, it was like any deception was like punished, but the person that was dealing the punishment was like my dad. So like it never really, like, I don't know.
Do you think it had, like, have you built some kind of resentment towards your parents because they used to be like punish you physically?
I did definitely. But after I was in college for a while, I kind of like came to understand that they were like really busy, and they were like, I understood where they were at. They just like kind of didn't know any other way, if I can. Like it was kind of like it was just like kind of established that was what they were supposed to do, and they were kind of just like finding their way through the dark, when it comes to like raising a kid and stuff like that.
Just from like interaction with you, it seems like you really have that TJ ingrained in you. Like you're really, it seems like you're really academic, like, and you value the academic aspect of life, right?
Yeah, but it's it's come to be like I still don't value the task completion. It's more about like, you know,
Competency.
competency. Yeah, it's more about having an intuitive understanding of the thing and then coming up with like an elegant way to explore that thing while expending as little resources as possible, right? Like I don't value, like if someone says they have a PhD, I say I don't give a shit, kind of. That's what I think in my head. I don't say that, right? I say I don't give a shit. What I care about is like what you've studied, what your research is, and whether or not you understand what you're fucking talking about, right? Like, I don't care if you slaved away in a laboratory for like 10 years and then you got like a pity PhD because of all the work you put in. Like, you know, that could be just as likely. You know, some people think that they're just entitled to their degrees by the amount of effort that they've put in, right? And I kind of see like, you know, I think it should be about like, you know, I think people should be able to get their PhD at a young age, and do very little work if they're able to contribute to the sphere of like scientific knowledge and expand it outward, right? At all, right? I think you should be able to have like, you know, but there's this, you know, part of it now is it's become a part of the culture now. It's like kind of implicitly understood that if you have a PhD, that you have a well-rounded, like, kind of like holistic knowledge about the subject that you have the PhD in. And I found that's sometimes the case. You know, people that really take it seriously, you know, and then for some people it's just like a status symbol, right? And for those, they oftentimes, you know, they're not intuitives, they're sensors, and they're, you know, people that have, you know, SJ types that have put a lot of effort and time and they like memorized a bunch of shit and they've gotten the work done, right? And they're able to like, you know, figure things out and contribute in some way, you know, but they're not really like balls deep into it, you know. They're
But in regards to the thing about you being like coming from an academic like background, I guess, whereas my parents are like they're not academics and all at all, but also the types. My mom is an ISFJ and my dad is an ISTP. And my dad, he is like he has his own company, and I think his company is around like 5 mil worth. So like he earns a buttload of money, right?
Yeah.
And he only has like 10 employees. But I've never felt the pressure to do anything in my life almost, because my parents were always like, they were hands off, you know. They gave me all the freedom in the world. They didn't care what I did, just be happy. That was the kind of way.
I always had like, I could never stay out, like on a school day I could never like be out anywhere. I always like, it was always had to be home. Like I wasn't like, it's like I wasn't like allowed to have friends because after school it's like I always had to come home. Like
yeah, actually, but I was totally different there because my parents were hands off, right? So they would just tell me, like, they were almost mad if I was home, like, go out, hang out with your friends and play soccer or whatever. Like, I always experienced a lot of stuff, and I kind of like, but I guess it's good and bad in the way that I don't really feel the pressure to do anything. So basically, I just do nothing because I'm pretty content with small things. If I can just sit around my computer, hang out with my friends, like that's basically the only thing I need right now. Maybe later in my life I will feel like I need something more, but then I will chase that, right?
Well, another thing that kind of like the achieving side of me, where that comes from, also is part of the school system that I went to. So I went to school, it was a public school, but the property values in the county where the school was located were so high that the property taxes were able to fund like one of the most competitive schools in the country. So even though it was a public school, like, and my mom taught there, so I was able to like go there even though I was out of district. And basically it was like 98% of the students, I think, graduated and went to college. So there was like this like tremendous pressure to like go become like a lawyer or a doctor or someone who's gonna like fucking change the world, because our graduating class was like 100 kids, And a good number of these kids were like the sons and daughters of CEOs, CTOs, like people that, you know, owned companies, people that were in politics. Like, you know, Aspen has like a lot of kids like that. There's also plenty of people that like weren't like that, but it created like a competitive environment where my expectations of what it meant to like do well was like skewed compared to like other people I've met, you know, because there were so many, you know, students there with like high pressure parents that were just like trying to get them to become like a congressman or some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, to try to. I fucking hate that shit. It almost gives me anxiety to think about living a life like that, where you're just fucking haunted by your parents to finish a PhD. Like, holy fuck.
right.
Like,
There's kind of,
it's like they almost didn't wanna, like, you couldn't be their son unless you got a PhD. Like, that pressure, I don't think I could handle it in the long run, to be honest.
yeah, and it was crazy too. Like, it was also like 60% of the students at the school were actively involved in sports too. And so it's like so many of the students there were like, you know, they felt this pressure to like get straight A's, like learn to play an instrument, like professionally, simultaneously become like you know, an athlete that can compete on like the state level, you know, like and there's people that were doing all of that, you know, and then going on to college and stuff. And like, I just imagine like how many of them are just like so burnt out by now, you know, like
fucking tired of life, right?
Like I didn't really get super involved in a lot of that. My grades weren't particularly well, you know. I had a hard time like, you know, keeping up with these people, and a lot of them didn't like care about the, you know, the deeper meaning of things. They were just trying to accomplish these tasks as designated by their family,
parents, right? They didn't
like,
think about what they actually wanted.
Cultural pressure too, you know, when everyone around you is doing these things, you know, going to Model UN and going to, you know, doing all these things where they're trying to get involved with, like globally involved, you know.
Yeah.
But I can also like appreciate that because it's helped me. I mean, it's allowed me to realize that like, oh, like this is how someone becomes like a high impact individual. It's like it's like determination and like continuing to push forward, like even when like shit gets bad, you know, and like stuff like that. But it also causes me a lot of anxiety, right? Because then I'm gonna be like comparing myself to all these other people that had the same opportunities that I did, you know.
But, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe like you've just like I think a lot of your goals are something you kind of inherited from your parents almost. Like it's something you can't. Like it's so ingrained in your.
Like, my parents weren't really interested in me being, you know, in particular, like having a specific, like, you know, career path in mind or anything like that. They just, you know, they just want me to like do well, right? They weren't particularly picky about, you know, it wasn't like you have to go to college, but like I felt like I kind of did have to go to college. You know what I mean? Like they would have been okay if I was like, oh, you know, I'm interested in this trade, like I want to go to a trade school or something. They would have been totally fine. It's just that like that didn't appeal to me, right? It was like I need to go like either go into like politics or I need to go into, or not politics, like geopolitical side of things, or I need to get involved in like a science, you know, or something like this because I wanted to like make an impact, you know. But you know, that's how I kind of, you know, sorted out. Like I had this thing that happened when I was in high school where as like I kind of had like a really, really vivid daydream. It was almost like a vision of like how things could be in the future. And it was like, how can I contribute to that? And that's how I kind of found my purpose, if you will.
Yeah, I've noticed that sometimes just kind of have to go through it, even though it feels like shit. And when you think about it, you can't seem to find a scenario where you would find yourself happy afterwards. But sometimes, you know, there's just some variables you can't account for before you've done it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've noticed that that has happened a lot in my life. I feel like where
Well, that's what I've realized when I used to experience a lot of frustration because I would plan things out and create this like perfect plan for like how things are going to work out. And then like early on, one thing would go wrong and it would be like, oh no, like it's all falling apart. But then it's kind of like you have to realize that like, there's no way you can anticipate every event and plan for everything. And from a pure, TI NE framework, like anticipate everything and account for it all. And as a consequence, I've started to like when it comes to like how I'm planning to go forward with things, I always try and like make it so that whatever I'm doing, if one thing goes wrong, like it's not going to compromise everything I'm trying to do. It just, it's like, oh, you just got to like maneuver around this obstacle, or you have to, sometimes you take a loss in order to preserve the long-term goal. It's okay to like lose a little battle and win like a big battle, in that kind of sense.
Yeah.
But it's still like my first tendency though is to like give up when things aren't going right and start over, but you can't do that in life, right?
I don't know, but I've had this, I guess you could call it a fantasy in being able to land like a high-end job without having a college degree, basically.
I mean, you can. The thing is that like you have to prove yourself demonstrably capable.
Exactly, which is
so hard without, that's what like a college degree gives you, is this piece of paper that proves that you're somewhat capable at least,
Yeah, exactly. But in programming, for example, it's really easy to show your competency by showing what you've done, right?
Just be like, well, I've written programs, here they are. If
exactly,
and they work, then I'm competent,
Exactly, and then you can get like, depending on what, of course, you've made. But if you made some really complicated shit, that where the guy who looks at it thinks, holy shit, this guy, like he must know his shit in order to make this. So you get hired, right? Because the thing you made was so complicated and so like, I guess, above level that it was that you could hire him, right? Which is something I'm really intrigued by, that I don't need a college degree to succeed, because my work is better than a college degree, basically.
It's something I've started to realize, like even when I'm in college, right? I feel like a lot of pressure to go to grad school because people have started to recognize that like I'm like good at research and like good at thinking about things, and I'm intelligent and articulate, and they're like, oh, go to grad school and all this kind of stuff. It's like, so then you can go on and get your PhD, and then you'll really have authority, and you'll really be able to prove people that your shit. So then you will actually be able to, But I've started to think like, no. There's a way I can prove my strengths with just my undergraduate degree and go into like the private sector and find something to do there, and not just have like prolonged unemployment and debt in academia,
Maybe it's some kind of arrogance I have in my ability to do stuff that I just think I'm better than the average, right? But I know I can be much better.
When you apply yourself though, right? And that's the key problem, is that successful people are, they are determined, and they keep going at it. And so even someone who's not as competent on, like, let's say you have like to do like a big project, right? If it only took like a few weeks to do it, like and like an INTP is really interested and engaged, almost like temporarily obsessed with that, then it can do like a better job almost than anyone with like far less education or backing. But when it comes to like, oh, this is like a multi-year project, and the INTP begins to get bored or something like that, someone else who's not as engaged and doesn't do as high quality work actually will finish the job as opposed to the INTP who's kind of like lost motivation,
Yeah, which is why, for example, you can write multiple programs at once. So when I get tired of one project, I'll just change the project. Yeah, let's just switch to the other and work on that, because there's a lot of different things you can do.
Yeah. That's something I've realized too, that like I've realized that if I am going to get to a point where I'm successful, it has to be an environment where I can constantly switch gears and be multidisciplinary in what I'm doing. I can't just, like I want to eventually start a company that does basically like only skunk work projects, like we have like one business viable thing that's like interesting and cool to do, but like the rest of the company is like kind of like skunk work projects. So that way there would always be this like new interesting thing to work on, and I could kind of like supervise those and help on the projects that I want to help on. And like I want to model it like you've heard of Valve, right? Gabe Newell,
I play Counter-Strike myself.
Yeah. So have you ever looked into like the company structure at Valve?
Yeah, like from what I understand of Valve, maybe this is not totally accurate, but it seems like to make it really brash, it's like they hire the most competent people within their field.
And the
like, they don't care about competency. Like they don't give a fuck if you have a PhD as long as your ideas are
good and
working.
And another thing that they do is that the culture at their company is that they have like a desk with wheels culture. So the idea is that when you show up to work, right, no one has given you like a task to do, right? No one has been like, here's your job and this is what you're doing. Basically, it's like, come up with a good idea that will like help the company make money, and if other people within the company think it's a good idea, they'll roll their desks over to you and work with you as the project lead. And if you feel like someone else's project is a good idea, you roll your desk over there and work on their project. And so the idea is that people are always working on what they want to be working on, and they can work on their best, right? It has the drawback of like no one wants to do the shit like customer support, right? That's why Valve has such shitty customer support, is because everyone in the company is like, I don't want to fucking do that, right? Like, but it has its advantages, right? Think about all these projects that were kind of like long shots that they invested time into, right? And you had like revolutionary like game engines coming out. You had revolutionary hardware coming out in recent years with, they tried the Steambox thing, that didn't really work, but the VR stuff is doing pretty well, and all of these things were kind of just like projects that started up because people were interested, and other people were like, that's really cool, I want to help. And it creates a culture where everyone's working on, it's radically different than
also they
corporate.
But they seem their communication style towards the community is like, they don't say much because the less you say, the less can be misinterpreted, right? So they only make like a statement once a year or something.
They operate under relative secrecy, just because they want to have the creative freedom to work on their projects without people trying to like constrain what they're working on, and like.
Yeah. Also, that's a good thing that that if you are a really active community manager or whatever, you're bound to say something that you have to live up to, right?
Yeah.
So basically, that's what Valve is trying to avoid, that they have nothing to live up to, so they don't make promises, right?
Yeah, because they don't reveal to the general public like these long-term promises, because they also know that at any time people might get bored of a project and all move over to work on some other project. So of course they're not going to make all these big promises, because if they did that, everyone would be disappointed all the time,
Exactly. So they just communicate less, so they don't like accidentally make some kind of because if they say, oh yeah, we're gonna make this MMO RPG within the next 3 years, and then they only make FPS games for the next 4, and people are like, what the fuck happened,
Think about the times when Valve has kind of messed up with that, right? When they were like, we're working on Half-Life Episode 3, and look at how much shit they've gotten for not actually finishing that project. And so that's forced them to be even more tight-lipped about everything they're doing, because they're like, fuck no, like everyone at the company must feel like so much pressure to make more Half-Life shit, but like no one wants to fucking work on that because they're bored of it,
Looking forward to the next game they announced though. Like, because Valve always makes good shit. Like it's
no matter what, it's gonna be good, right? It's like
the last 5 games they've made has been like pure.
It's like every game they release is like a 10 out of 10, like de facto, just.
Like they made CS:GO, they made Half-Life, they've made Dota.
And the Portal.
What's the recent games they've made?
The Portal
Portal?
games are good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like they only make they make the good shit, right?
And like
for,
they have the best VR platform on the market, for example. You know, like
look at fucking EA games. Like they're like the trash can.
it's just like shit, like shoveling shit, and like
Assassin's Creed number 8. Like, okay, how many games can you make, right?
Yeah, it's like about maximizing profits, not about, you know, having
Making
everybody.
good
It's not
content.
about creating quality and having everybody at your company working on projects they can be passionate about. It's just about making money. You know, it's like, I mean,
Funny thing is-
of course, at Valve they're interested in making money, but the way they're able to make money is the fact that everyone like is intelligent about it, right? And now that they have the Steam platform, they can basically subsidize any project they want because they're making so much money because they basically have a monopoly, right? So it only takes one good idea that's market viable, and then you can fund all the other crazy shit you want to work on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, the Steam market works in that way. Like, if you're a developer, you've made a game, you say, okay, well, you can take fucking 50% of every game that's purchased, and then they put it up on the Steam market, and they make 50% of a game they've like.
Right. It's like really low. It's like they've basically figured out a way to make money without having to do a lot, and they can fund all the other projects they do in the company. Right?
Exactly. Like you do it with so many games, like fucking Call of Duty, for example. Like something that's like kind of Steam only, right? But I bet Valve haven't lifted a finger besides fucking writing their names on a paper so they can make millions.
And so that's what I think. Like for my company, what I'd like to do is have like I'd like to have like synthetic enzymes be like the main market viable thing, so we could like design custom enzymes for people to use in their factories or in their research or whatever, and that would be like the main revenue source. And then from that, funnel all the money into the Skunkworks projects, because through the innovation, new and exciting things will happen, and eventually like something else, you know, you have to have like, the thing is, when you go private sector, you have to have one market viable thing that's consistent, right? Valve's thing is their game store, right? You know, that's kind
Steam market.
Yeah, the Steam marketplace, right? That allows them to basically have free reign and work on any projects they want.
Yeah, exactly. But also, and the funny thing is, Blizzard is kind of like the good SJ in the you know, they're kind of the good SJ in gaming, like producing games, because they make good content, but you feel like they really have a plan with what the fuck they're doing, right? It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make this 4 years out, and we're gonna do it this way, and all the way up, like this week we're gonna do this, we're gonna work on these months, blah blah. You get the feel like that they've planned it the next 4 years. You know what they're gonna do every day when they meet to work, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different environment in Blizzard for sure, I think.
I wonder. I haven't heard much about what their corporate environment is like, but aren't they over in
Europe?
Or wasn't their original office in Asia somewhere?
Yeah, I think actually they have a lot of offices in France and Germany.
Well, now that they're so big after World of Warcraft, they're global, but
yeah, I guess. I don't know where it was funded, Blizzard. Actually,
maybe it was Korea, right? Because StarCraft 1, I just seemed to, and like Diablo and all that was really.
I guess quick Google search.
Yeah. What? There's this amazing technology that exists where we can find all this out.
Nøglepersoner. Det står her, yeah. It says as you said, it's US. No joke. It says it was funded 26 years ago. The funders is Alan Adam and Michael Mohame and Frank Pierce.
From UCLA. Yeah. Okay.
So it's American, actually.
It's American company, huh? Okay.
Yeah, they've made so many good games. Like, holy fuck! Imagine fucking Diablo was one of the greatest game ever created for the time it was created, and like Diablo 2 was.
Well,
insane.
Recently we've noticed a little bit of hit and miss, though. Like, for example, Diablo 3 was.
Yeah, that's true. Pretty bad
Hearthstone,
fucking game. Have you played Path? Oh yeah, you played Path of Exile. Like,
Path of Exile.
grinding gear games, they're the new shit. I fucking love that company. I think they resemble the things I like about like
Yeah.
making
see,
games.
Grinding gear games is, since they're so